Department and the Orange County Fire Authority was to render the scene safe. We worked in a unified command with the Fire Authority and were able to do that in very short order. Orange County Fire Authority brought more than 70 firefighters, which included paramedics, hazardous materials specialists, urban search and rescue, arson investigators, and the Joint Hazard Assessment Team known as JHAT to manage the incident. The Orange County Sheriff's Department dedicated numerous resources, including our initial patrol response, our critical incident response management team, our critical incident response team, our bomb squad, tactical teams, the Orange County Intelligence Assessment Center working to monitor the incident, mobile field force, and numerous investigative resources. We immediately began to evacuate the surrounding businesses, including a preschool with more than 100 children. We'd also like to thank those from the adjacent businesses and the preschool for their cooperation, the ability to evacuate promptly, and their subsequent reunification efforts that took place. The Orange County Bomb Squad and Orange County Fire Authority Hazardous Materials Team worked jointly to ensure there were no items that would cause a secondary explosion. The Hazardous Materials Team from the Orange County Fire Authority remains on scene to assist as part of this investigation. We also called in our federal law enforcement partners from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, and other federal agencies to assist in the investigation. I'd like to remind you that while we're still in the preliminary stages of the investigation, as you can imagine, this is a fluid situation. I will share with you that what we believe to be true at this time, but as we've seen throughout the course of investigations like this, information changes rapidly. Working jointly, once the scene was declared safe, we began a full investigation into the cause of the explosion. We believe that a business on the first floor of 11 Mariblu, our female victim was killed by an explosion that occurred within that office. The business operates as a day spa. Evidence collected and what we believe are involved in the explosion are not consistent with items that would be used at a day spa. We do not believe at this time that this was an accident. At this time, we have ruled out the potential for this to be an accident, as I said, due to the condition of the victim. We are still working to officially identify her through the Orange County Coroner's Office. However, based on our investigation, we believe the victim is Ildiko Krasniak, 40 years old, from Trabuco Canyon. Ildiko is believed to be the owner of the day spa. 3 search warrants were served earlier this morning, one at the business on Mariblu, one in the city of Long Beach, and one in Trabuco Canyon. At this time, there are no arrests in regards to this investigation. Investigators are still working to confirm whether or not this was an intentional act. We are, however, investigating this as a crime, and Sheriff's Homicide is the lead investigator in this case. All businesses on Mariblu will be closed for the remainder of the day to protect the integrity of the investigation and the crime scene. Lastly, I would like to thank all our local and federal partners who worked jointly to ensure a swift and thorough response to this tragic situation. It is important to remember that while we still have a lot of questions, our primary goals are the safety of the public, to protect the integrity of the investigation, to arrest suspects or a suspect in this case, and to bring closure to the family for their loss. As we continue to work this investigation, we will release information as appropriate and with these same goals in mind. Now I'd like to introduce Paul Delacourt, Assistant Director in Charge with the Federal Bureau of Investigation from the Los Angeles Field Office. Paul. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Paul Delacourt from the Los Angeles Field Office of the FBI. The Undersheriff gave you the sequence of events as we understand them now. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the tragedy that several individuals and their families are facing right now. Our thoughts are with them, and as is our hope for a successful and speedy recovery. I can tell you that we have hundreds of investigators of all disciplines working around the clock to get to the bottom of this matter. You will see teams of our investigators at the Aliso Viejo location where the explosion occurred. Our evidence response team has been on scene for a number of hours now and is proceeding through a methodical search of the location. We expect this will be a lengthy process, could take a number of days, perhaps up to a week. This is a very difficult crime scene, and I'd like to ask you and thank you in advance for your patience while our employees do this difficult and painstaking work. The FBI is working with the Sheriff's Department and many partners at the local and the federal level to determine how and why this explosion occurred. Bomb technicians from multiple agencies are working diligently to determine the cause of the explosion. As the Undersheriff noted, at this point we do not believe this was an accident. We've ruled out a gas main explosion and other potential theories. At this point, our working theory is that this explosion was caused by a device, and although the damage was extensive, there are some components that we have located at the scene of the explosion that are inconsistent with what one might expect to find at this business. That said, we have a lot of work to do in order to get this right. We've collected evidence from multiple locations. We've conducted multiple interviews, including interviews of the surviving victims. Evidence is being expedited to the FBI laboratory as we speak. The plane is already wheels up. I do need to clear something up for you. There has been some reporting about how the device was delivered to the location. At this time, we do not know how the device arrived at the location. We're conducting a number of avenues of logical investigation as to who may have information about how this explosion occurred. You may see us at many locations around the area. We may be interviewing people, we may be executing search warrants. We'll do our best to keep you apprised of the developments of this investigation as appropriate. And finally, we are actively seeking information from members of the public who may have information about this explosion. If you believe you may have useful information, please call us at 1-800-CALL-FBI. That information will be routed through to the command post. We'll be in close coordination with the Sheriff's Office, other federal partners, and we'll make sure that all tips are acted on. Thank you. With that, I'd like to introduce Special Agent Bill McMullen, Special Agent in Charge Bill McMullen, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms.
Thank you, sir. Again, my name is Bill McMullen. I'm the ATF Special Agent in Charge of the Los Angeles Field Division. On behalf of the men and women of ATF, I'd like to first say that our thoughts and prayers are out to the victims and their family members. This is going to be a very difficult situation for them to go through, and our hearts go out to them as they go through this process. I'd also like to commend and recognize the outstanding job by the Orange County Sheriff's Department, the Fire Authority, and all the first responders who got out there so quickly yesterday to make sure that the most important thing to all of us was taken care of, and that's the safety of the public and making sure that that scene was secure. And they did an outstanding job yesterday, as they do every day. We're very fortunate to have such professional, dedicated units in this county that take care of us every day. Very much appreciated. As soon as this incident occurred yesterday, ATF agents from across the state responded immediately. We had our Special Agent bomb techs, certified explosive specialists, some of our criminal enforcement groups, specifically in Santa Ana, our intelligence group, respond as quickly as they could to make sure that we were providing ATF resources, manpower, and our expertise to make sure we were supporting the Sheriff's Department. That continued throughout the night and will continue as this investigation continues and until it's concluded. And we'll continue to work with our federal partners and all the state and local partners who are involved in this investigation. I won't answer any questions as far as the status or details of the case, and I'll hand it back over to the Undersheriff.
Are you guys concerned there's more targets?
So the question for the group was, are we concerned there's more targets? We don't rule out anything, but at this point there's nothing that will lead us to believe that there are. So until we can prove otherwise, everything is being investigated.
But we don't know why she was targeted.
That has not been determined. The question is, do we know why she was targeted? We do not know the motive behind the case at this time. One question at a time, please.
Don, when you indicate that there are items that are not consistent with what would be found in a day's box, can you elaborate on that? What do you mean by that?
Well, as Paul Betancourt said, it is items not consistent. he did. I'd like to have Paul come up and answer that question. Come on back up, Paul.
The damage at the scene was extensive, so it's hard to identify some of the pieces of the potential device. So what we have located is simply some items that are inconsistent with a business of that type. We've sent them back to the FBI laboratory in Quantico, Virginia, in order to have trace evidence and other tests done right away to determine if they were components of a device.
Can you spell the name of the victim and go over the other victims?
The two injured women, were they standing near the deceased victim when this box or package was opened?
So the question was, the two injured women, there were three, but the two injured that were injured severely, were they close to the victim? They were proximate. They were in the business location.
Were they employees or were they customers?
We believe that they were patrons at the business. So correct, just the spelling of the victim is I-L-D-I-K-O. Last name is spelled K-R-A-J-N-Y-A-K. Sorry.
Do you believe
Good.
that she was targeted intentionally here?
Well, we don't know what the motive is, so we can't confirm or deny whether she's targeted. We do know that an explosion happened at the location. The investigation is ongoing, and we will try to determine a motive. So that's not known.
That were in the office, are they able to describe what happened?
They were interviewed, and they did give some description to our investigations as to what occurred, but it was very limited.
Are you searching for suspects?
A little bit about the initial response. Were you at all concerned about copycats after Austin, and if so, how did you answer that?
Sure. The question was, were we concerned about our response? We're fortunate in California to have a training that we do on incidents like this. We had several grants from the federal government that allow us to train on a very broad scale. So our response protocols are very specific, but also very fluid. So we don't want to do things where we might roll into a secondary device. We really do things to keep the advantage on our side and not put ourselves unnecessarily at risk. But our teams are trained on how to respond to terrorist incidents like this. Not saying this was terrorist-based, but any type of incident that might have an incendiary device, an explosive device, chemical agents, whatever it might be, we have a response protocol for all of those, and that was what we did in this case.
With the possibility of it being mailed. With the possibility of it being mailed.
It doesn't matter how the device gets there. Our response protocols are based. It's incident driven, based on what we encounter. That is part of the investigation that goes on from there.
Are you searching for suspects at this point?
We are investigating the case with the FBI, and of course, our goal is to locate persons involved, and if where we can, make arrests. So of course, we're doing that.
How far along are you in finding a suspect?
We didn't have a profile. We're looking at all possible leads. Go ahead, Paul.
So at 11:35 the night before, deputies were sent to that address, and I understand that there was a bomb threatening.
I don't know anything about that information. I don't know that
Do
information.
you know why they were sent there?
No, there aren't anybody being detained.
Did anyone see the victim opening a package? You haven't really said anything about that. Did anyone see a package being opened?
That's part of the investigation, and that's part of the interviews that are being conducted. Chip.
On that note, you said that the items found there were inconsistent with the base bomb. Are they consistent with the package?
That would be Paul. You want to answer that question?
It would be premature to speculate on the nature of the components that we found there, which is why I described them in that way, and why we've expedited their transfer back to the laboratory to be more precise when we speak to you about what type of initiator this explosion had. We don't believe this was an accident.
Is there anything in the victim's background that would indicate she would be targeted?
So that's part of the investigation. We're looking at the victims as well as associates and a number of avenues in order to make sure we identify the right parties responsible for this. What I can assure you is that regardless of the motivation, it doesn't impact the way that we respond to this, the way that we work jointly with our partners to bring all resources to bear to identify the nature of the motivation behind such an attack and ensure safety and security of the community. At this point, we also don't have any other threat reporting or other indicators that there are any secondary devices. I can put you at ease in that regard.
Thank you. We understand that Ildiko had recently been involved in a relationship that did not end well. Have you been able to contact that man and talk to him yet?
Yeah, I'm not going to comment on any of the specific avenues of inquiry that we're pursuing at this point.
Is the FBI
Can you roll that out?
Sir, I can't articulate any of the nature of the investigative leads that we're pursuing at this time. I hope you can appreciate that.
Would the FBI be involved in this case if this package or device was sent through the mail or delivered by a service? If that wasn't the case, would it then just be an Orange County Sheriff's Department case or was something that was carried into the building? Can you kind of explain the differentiation for us and what the role of the FBI is?
The FBI has joint jurisdiction under a number of different statutes to pursue investigations of explosions such as this one. At the very least, we would be in a supporting role to our federal, state, and local partners, and our incident response would remain the same regardless of the nature of the motivation behind the attack.
So what are the possibilities as far as how this explosive device, if we can call it that, got into the building? What are you looking at? That it was sent through the mail, that it was delivered? The Postal Service is denying that it was mailed to this building.
That's one of the investigative leads that we're pursuing, is how the device arrived at the location.
How about the night before? Was that related to this at all?
I don't have any information about calls the night before.
The Sheriff's
Can you confirm
Department.
to us a little bit more about the context regarding the victim who's deceased here? Did you see this as a domestic incident? Do you see this as a broader issue of community security?
We're pursuing all the possible motivations behind this explosion. At this point, we don't have any indicators that there is any lack of security for the community. We don't have any indicators of threat reporting, any claims of responsibility, or any indication that there are other secondary devices. So I don't see it as an issue of community security at this point, but we are pursuing all the investigative leads and where they will take us in order to determine the motivation behind the explosion.
Have there been any threats against the victim
doing
before?
everything to keep the community safe. And in the initial response, we have word that because there was thought that it could have been a package and that it could have been mailed there, that UPS trucks were being stopped and looked at. Can you confirm that?
I don't have any information about UPS trucks being stopped. I can tell you that as part of the investigation, we've been in contact with federal and private sector partners, and they've been incredibly cooperative.
What do you want the public, what sort of help do you want from the public? What are you looking for?
We've established a tip line, 1-800-CALL-FBI, and anyone who believes they have information about the nature of this explosion, or anyone who saw anything, anyone who may have video or other type of lead information, we would appreciate them making a call to that tip line. We'll make sure it gets routed directly to our command post, and then we have investigators from the FBI, ATF, and Orange County pursue all leads to their fruition.
So is the reason you don't think this is a broader community threat because it's part of a domestic?
We've executed a number of search warrants based on appropriate legal process. That's all I want to suggest about that at this time.
But with 3 search warrants out there, does that mean you're pursuing multiple leads in terms of possible suspects?
We're pursuing any investigative lead that's made available to us, and that we will follow. In response to the question was asked about the call for service. That call for service was deputy initiated. It was not. It was a patrol check that they logged. It was not in response to a call for service that was generated from the public. So we're going to end the conference here. Thank you for your time. We appreciate your cooperation.
And we've been listening to Orange County Sheriff investigators and federal investigators giving us an update on the explosion that took place yesterday in Aliso, Viejo, apparently happening at a day spa owned by the victim. She's been identified as Ildiko Krajniak. And again, police telling us this was not an accident. They ruled out that this was not an accident, and they're still looking for more information, more details, and hopefully somebody will step forward and help them with their investigation as well.
Yeah, they don't know how it got there, whether it was delivered or somebody actually walked it into the building. They also say at this point they do not have a motive, but they did try to reassure the public that they don't believe that there are any more explosives out there. It looks like this was an isolated incident.
So hopefully we'll get more. So stay with KCAL 9 News and KCAL9.com for the very latest on the deadly bombing in Aliso Viejo. We'll be right back.
A facelift or neck lift without surgery? How's that sound? That's right. Tighten the skin around your face, eyes, and neck without surgery, without injections, and without fillers of any kind. And